guns in many ways, and I was very, very clear. I don't support thuggery. I never have in any way at all. But do you understand why they were going into the streets with kids in pyjamas?
I understand why. I understand how economic dislocation creates the conditions in which communities start to fall apart. And I also understand, and Nigel, this is difficult to say because I'm in your temple.
No,
you've been a welcoming host.
You say what you like here.
But your personal rhetoric over the past 20 years has massively contributed to the emergence of these kinds of scenes. It really, really has.
Do you know what? If they'd listened to me, none of this would have happened.
What did you say?
I said, be careful. Get immigration numbers substantially lower. Don't allow people who come illegally to stay. Make sure those that come are the type of people that will integrate in our communities. And I'm going to argue, Kieran, very strongly.
Fair enough, but I'm going to argue back. What have you said for the previous 20 years before that? I mean, we could mine a million quotes of you basically saying that too much immigration creates flare-ups in communities. And I think the more and more you say that, the more often you give cover to that kind of view.
Oh, I'm not giving cover to it.
More it creates...
I'm not giving cover to it.
Also, Nigel, just to say...
When the police basically say you're all far-right thugs, that misunderstands what's going on.
But let me just say one thing, Nigel. There's that element to it. I firmly believe that your rhetoric and the rhetoric of your parties over the years has contributed to this kind of thing, including the far-right riots last summer. But there's also another component to this, which we'll get onto.
Should we just ignore it? Forget about it?
No, well, what we should do is we should try and acknowledge that there is inherent difficulty in coexistence, but also try and find socio-economic solutions to that, rather than constantly saying, these people are stealing your jobs, these people are causing the problems. Nigel, I just want to say that adjoins to the other point I want to make. There are economic measures that can be introduced in countries. Indeed, I noticed that Reform, your party, are actually adopting some of them lately, or saying that they adopt some of them, that improve the lives of individuals in communities who feel that they have nothing going for them. But you've supported Thatcherite politics your whole life.
Kieran, 40 years ago.
Much more recently.
You weren't even born.
No, but you've said you're a Thatcherite much more recently.
You talk about economic dislocation. Now, you know, what has happened here is these two 14-year-old boys have had charges read to them in court. This is not economic, this is cultural, isn't it?
Look, I think that you have to call out the thuggery that we've seen. It's plain and simple.
Which we're all
not acceptable.
And
you've done that, and I've just done that, and actually I think we're completely
But the difference is here, I see
that point.
Kieran's saying it's an economic problem. I don't believe it is. I think it's a cultural problem.
Well, the problem you have is that you simply cannot integrate the volume of people that are coming to this country. And one of the big concerns that I have is that actually consent for legal migration is being hugely eroded. People who play by the rules, come here legitimately, have skills that we want. That is now being seen through the same prism. The visuals that people see are small boat arrivals and the issue of hotels. Completely unacceptable. And what's happening, and we have to, you know, politicians have to get real about this, and so do the judiciary, that the numbers are going the wrong way. And you've got ministers giving the impression in their social media output and in interviews and in the House of Commons that the numbers are falling when it comes to legal migration. They're taking off. They're going through the roof.
Here's a point, Kieran. Here is a point. I mean, we can discuss the 10 million population increase. We can discuss all that stuff, and yet the public are focused on the channel because they think there's an inherent unfairness in people coming in, going into four-star hotels, getting free dental care, etc. This is now a political problem for Labour on a huge scale. And I've noticed that in the last few days, the Sun newspaper are going for this story in a massive way. He's got no chance of smashing the gangs, has he?
So I'll come to that in a moment. But first of all, can I just clarify, Nigel, what do you mean by it's cultural? Do you mean that Romanians are more inherently predisposed to rape?
I think if you don't speak the same language, if you have a different way of living to the rest of the street...
What does that mean, a different way of living?
You know...
You think that they're more prone to rape?
No, I didn't say that, but I mean litter, untidiness, a different way of living. Have you been to Roma settlements? I've been to the biggest Roma settlement in Bulgaria and the biggest Roma settlement in Romania. There is a different way of life.
But people in Ballymena aren't living in the way that they would in rural Bulgaria.
And equally, we could go to other cultures where women are treated differently. The fundamental problem of lack of integration is cultural, not economic.
So let's just say this quickly. I mean, first of all, totally disagree with that. And I also think if you look at statistics in Ballymena, what is it, 16% mixed ethnic background.
Yeah.
The average in Northern Ireland is 6%. You know, again, I don't think that that's an unmanageable number of people in a community.
Well, it was in Ballymena.
Well, it was because you set you and other members of the political class with your worldview helped create the kindling with the rhetoric and the view that those people are to blame, and the economic policies set
Who voted?
the light.
Who voted? I mean, this lot promised in election after election numbers would come down. They've gone through the roof. Starmer's promising to smash the gangs. Yeah. It's clearly failing completely. And, you know, we are where we are with this. It's not going to go away, is it?
I'll make one other point, Nigel. You saw in Liverpool when the identity of the attacker became apparent. I mean, you must know this, Nigel. Whether you admit it now or not is a different story. But so many people were preparing to pounce, desperate for it to be a person from a BAME background, a Muslim, and so on. They were terribly disappointed. And then they immediately humanised the individual. He's a small business owner.
That was where, after Southport particularly, the government and the police failed the country by not putting information into the public domain. I asked on one day afterwards that people know the truth.
Yeah.
Jonathan Hall Casey, the terrorism czar, has absolutely endorsed what I said. If you tell the public the truth, whatever it is, they'll live with it.
But I'm not
if you leave a vacuum, you've got a problem.
At this point, I'm not even necessarily talking about you specifically.
Sure.
But there were so many people in your broader cohort, sorry to put it like that, who were clearly devastated that this was a white man. And so the same goes for rape gangs and for...
Do you know what? I don't buy that. I don't buy that.
I think in your heart you know.
Do you think we have a problem here?
I think we have a problem with politics which you've supported over the past 20, 30 years, or 40 years.
Controlling immigration.
Politics which creates dislocation and corrosion in communities by disinvesting. Well, you supported austerity, didn't you? Did you support austerity?
I wasn't in the government.
No, but you did support austerity. You openly said that you did.
However rich or poor we are, mass migration, I think Tom recognises this very clearly.
That's why I cut legal migration numbers by 50%, because it was not sustainable to have those sorts of numbers. I always said we need to go further, and that's been borne out, but it's a start. I think the problem here, and some of the debate sort of reflects this, is that if you spend any time out in the country, like I used to do in Northamptonshire, week in, week out, my constituents used to tell me the access issues to public services, people feel the strain in that regard. There's the real inherent unfairness of seeing people arriving in a small boat being put up in a hotel. And that's just not sustainable.
Well, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll stick with this subject, because we're going to go in a moment and talk about the Los Angeles riots, which is all about illegal migration and what government